All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. Very excited to have Anand here with me today, a former colleague from a very, very long time ago, and entrepreneur and life coach now, also venturing into new businesses. Anand, if you want to introduce yourself real quick to tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dominic, first of all, to have me here. Before I even introduce myself, I'm so glad we connected after 20 years? uh,
Long
uh,
time.
yeah, it's been a while, and you don't remember too many people, so I'm glad we both remembered each other. And I was telling this to my wife as soon as last week when we talked about it. It's like you remembered my son's name, which I was like moved by, and I was
After
surprised that
that
he.
many years.
Yeah, I'm like
It
after
was,
20 years.
I think, I don't know, there was something, to me, it really felt like, we haven't been, disconnected for so long, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't remember anybody's name, leave alone their sons or their kids' names, right? So thanks for that to begin with. So of course, since I've moved on in 20 years since we met. Name is Anand Nagarajan. My latest venture is called Mindset to Excel. It's a life coaching company. In terms of my personal background, I've spent over 25 years navigating the corporate world, so to speak, doing different things, being a developer, which is where we met over 20 years ago, and then moving into leadership. Um, Eventually, was good career growth in the corporate world until 2016. I was running big teams, doing big things within the IT environments in healthcare. Um, in 2016, call it a midlife crisis, whatever. I just couldn't do it anymore. Right? I just couldn't do the job anymore. So I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. So I quit, which sounds like, if I, in hindsight, was a stupid thing to do. But I guess that's what had to happen that to bring me here. Um, so I left my corporate role to jump into entrepreneurship, which through a series of steps over months of hardships and resulted in me meeting somebody that we were able to bootstrap a business together, and which thankfully grew in the 7 years that we did it together. And I recently exited that business and founded a coaching company called Mindset to Excel, which is my personal passion, is to help people like myself, who I come from a very middle class, lower middle class background, didn't have much resources growing up. Um, and if I can do it, anybody else can. So that's the idea behind it, is to help people realize their potential that they are probably not seeing in themselves, which I didn't. And I'm also a founder of another company called S2 Nova, which is an IT services firm focused on SailPoint and ServiceNow solutions. Um, that's my day job. I've also ventured into some real estate here and there. So that's just who I am.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's interesting, right? You were when we met and worked together, you had a bit more experience than I had. I was just starting out at that time, right? And and I think it's worthwhile recognizing, right, from a career path perspective, that how it's moving forward is doesn't have to be linear, or maybe most of the time it really is not, right? And
Yep.
so you worked, right, in enterprise environments, IT, software development. You went into leadership um, also, and then you talked a little bit about this transition from how should I say? Is it fair? From a more protected corporate environment, right, with very predictable, very routine, right? Maybe you even had trajectory to keep elevating your career in higher level roles as well. But can you talk a little bit more about how this change came about? Right. I mean, you went from a technology execution delivery for your employer at the time into a business opportunity, and like you said, you kind of maxed out on what you thought you could do in that environment, right? That how did that come about? And was that something that you had planned or knew that you were getting into at the time?
Yes and no. So I had always wanted to do something on my own, and I
Mm-hmm.
had tried twice while I still had a job to do a couple of things. And the first challenge that I got, I quit. Okay. Now that was what happened, right? I'm like, let me just do this while I'm having a job. Let me just try creating a business. So I had a couple of ideas. We had few people that we did it together, and then the first hurdle, which you're going to get, right, when you are trying to do something. But then as soon as the first hurdle or the second hurdle, we're like, this is just not possible to surmount, so let's just go back to the job. So
Oh, because of the time commitment required, or what was
I
the
think it's
limitation?
the it's the mindset of, I don't, when I look back at it, I think it was me not having to solve it, right? It's like I didn't feel the need to solve it because I have a job to go back to, a paycheck keeps coming,
Yeah, there's a
right?
backup. There's a backup to it, and the commitment maybe this doesn't have to be fully there. It's like, yeah, I'm safe in my daily job, perhaps, huh?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I didn't have to solve it, right?
yeah,
And if you want to be successful in a business environment, you have to be ready every day to face challenges, right? And you cannot just say, I don't think this is possible, but there's no way to go back to, right? If you are in
yeah,
it, you would solve it. So the couple of times I tried, I failed, right? So, and then 2016, uh, truth be told, the reason that this shift happened is because my wife was struggling with the health condition, and she
mhm,
needed somebody to be home for a few months, not for a whole lot of time. But then my employer back then said, "Yeah, just go take the time off and come back." I'm like, I don't want to come back. So it's a combination of me
yeah,
wanting to be there for my wife and knowing that if I did that, but and then have a job, it's never going to be that I cannot be focused on her. And
mm,
to me, it was important that she stayed in the right spirit, which meant that I needed to be with her, according to me anyway, which she wasn't in agreement with. She
yeah,
felt that she was failing me by not letting me do what I wanted to do, but it
yeah,
was something that I had to do. So that's how
yeah,
this whole thing started. Is so I quit a job, okay, knowing that uh, I didn't want to go back. And when I look back at it, it was more of an excuse, I guess, for me to just quit a job, right? Like,
mhm,
although there was a valid reason, I'm like, I convinced myself, okay, I'm going to quit the job. But while I was doing it, I also knew I didn't want to go back. I want to do something on my own, right?
mhm.
So, we put some money away, so we are safe. While while I was caring for her, and then I wanted to try building a business. I didn't know what that business was. Like nothing was clear, right? All I knew was I did not want to go back to work.
Oh, that's fascinating. Or not going back to work, not the traditional corporate work.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that is very interesting. Sometimes I think this year and I think last year also, right? A lot of people have faced layoffs, right? And the job market has been tough for many, especially in IT field, but other areas as well. And I couldn't help myself but think that the underlying silver lining. I mean, it's not nice, right? I mean, a lot of people, a lot of families are impacted, right? But I'm wondering if many people can be motivated, right, by being in a situation, without a job in the short term, right, that some energy can be invested into starting their own business, right? Because there are a lot of very qualified, very experienced people around that have the skills to go work in many different places, right? It's just a matter, I think, of opportunities that are not there, perhaps right now. So, do you think that's also something that is a possibility, right? That more people could be encouraged to pursue their own businesses and provide services and create innovation, even that maybe wouldn't have existed otherwise.
I 100% agree. So, um, a lot of times it's not if you take a step back from it, right? Nobody is job insecure. Most people are income insecure. Okay.
So it
Nobody
is, yeah.
wakes up saying, or I should speak about myself, but I think for the most part, right? Nobody wakes up saying, I think I need to go to work today. Right? Like they're doing it because we're getting paid. So that shift has to happen from job insecurity to income insecurity, which is real,
Yeah,
right? We all have to
yeah,
pay the bills, right?
right,
Um, but once it's an income insecurity, then you're solving an income problem, not a job problem, which shifts your mindset, right? From the only way to make money is to go to a job, which is what makes you insecure, is I just need to make money. Then that opens up a lot more doors in your mind, because now you're trying to solve a different problem,
right, right,
which is I need to bring money in, which then says, well, what are the best ways to bring money in? That, from my perspective, that shift was instrumental in me just convincing myself this was the right thing to do, is to say, I just need to bring in money, right? It doesn't matter if I'm an executive in an IT company or doing whatever else. It didn't matter. So when that change happened, I was doing catering for a while. Like because I always liked cooking, right? So like, maybe I can. So I did a couple of parties. We catered for a few parties, and there was good feedback. So there was some money. It was not a whole lot of money, but the point is, your mindset, your mindset goes from a fixed mindset. This is how I need to. I'm wide open. I can
uh,
go this here or here or here, and being a business or jumping into this is not as difficult as they make it to be. What makes it difficult is the economy part. It's the money that you need to make from it. It's whether
right,
you can pay the
right,
bills, and that's what stops most people from, number one, to start something, and number two, to keep at it long enough so you can succeed.
right. Yeah, I think there's some statistics floating around, right? That if you start something and you stick with it long enough, eventually it works out. But if you don't give it enough time, right, then you may not have the chance, because not many people can just turn it around from one day to the next and go into doing something completely different, right? There's a lot of, I think, a lot of learning process involved, which I'm seeing myself as well, right? And so
Yeah.
giving it that time, right, and having that support and being able to, I think, process that, I think that's a big deal, right? And it does take a little bit of time to adjust. And yeah, like you said, I like how you said it, problem solve really, at the end of the day, right, with different perspectives and the different approach than maybe you were more limited in, right, in a smaller environment that you used to.
Yeah, I mean, you define success differently, right? Like once you, because when you are in an environment where you're set on your path to be something, and then you think that's what success looks like, right? It is when that
Mhm.
shift happens, you're like, it could be anything, right? It makes it wide open. It almost liberated me, and I think it would liberate anybody who wants to do it, as long as you solve the biggest insecurity, which is the income part, right? Like
Right,
that's what it
right,
boils down to. That's why people give up, not because they cannot do
right,
it.
right.
It's just because there's money that needs to be made, right? I mean, that's the reality of life. Um, so, and which is where I think I, that putting money away, my wife and I talked, and at that time she wasn't even working, so I was a single breadwinner at that time.
Mhm.
But we put enough money away, but no money is enough. Okay, let's face it, right? Like,
More is always better.
yeah. But whatever it is, what was reasonable, we thought, which in reality ended up being much bigger. But putting that money away is what then made me say, okay, I don't have to worry about it for 6 months. Okay, so I
Yeah,
can just try new things. Then I go meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. That's how my journey started, was meeting somebody who changed my life,
yeah.
right? Uh, but that meeting happened only because of that switch, which is to say, this is not necessarily how success looks like. I'm more open. When I didn't have a
Mhm.
paycheck that was coming, I'm like, I'll just do anything that anybody wants me to do. which then opens me up to meet more people, say yes to things that I wouldn't have said yes to before,
Right.
seeing the opportunities differently. All that happened in a
Yeah.
matter of 6 months, I would say, when that shift happened. And then when that happened, I'm like, it's still a long road. Uh, we went without making any money for like year and a half.
Hmm.
Like, it started off as 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But ended up being 18 months. But then along the way, you find solutions for each one of them, which because you couldn't have solved, I couldn't have solved it because I didn't know what was coming, right? I knew the 6 months, and then that led to something, and then you have to solve it, and you'll solve it, and then you'll keep solving as you go. But it's a mindset that I have no choice but to solve it,
Right. Because
right? There is
I
no
mean, there's
way
no
to go
safety
back.
net at that point, right? It's like, well, either keep going or you stop, and then you go back into the corporate environment again, basically, right?
And
Yeah.
that's the easy thing to do, right? You know this, I know this. I got 3 job offers while I was not even looking, right? So I equate that to the Staples easy, but like, what is it? Is there an easy button? Like, um, getting a job is the easiest thing to do still, right? You can still go find a job. It may not be what you want, it may not pay you exactly what you're looking for, but you'll have something, right? So,
Well, it's back to the income security, right? So like, hey,
right,
you can make a living that way, right? And
right.
then it's like, oh, okay, you get, but it comes with everything else, right? So then you have a choice of like, do you continue on this path with greater level of uncertainty and much more accountability and ownership, like full ownership, right? Versus you join and you participate somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, that was a long way of saying it was kind of going with the flow in a lot of ways,
yeah.
I guess. So
Yeah. So going back, so you left corporate environment, you started a business, you learned the hard way how to build and operate a business. You exited successfully recently, and you're currently working on 2 new ventures. One of them is an IT focused venture, right, which provides interesting and important services. But if you don't mind, I'd like to focus a little bit on your other venture that you have just launched as a life coach. And if you don't mind, let me share and see if the technology works here. There you
well, we
go.
are technology people, so we are technology challenged as well.
Well,
So
well prepared and tested, so it works out. So this is a look at your website, right? And you have a blog on your website where I've seen you um, write very nice and I think from the heart stories about your experiences and your journey. And one of the one that kind of stuck out to me is this one in the middle right here, the controlled free fall. And we'll post the link, of course, to the video as well. But and everybody can read about that. But can you talk a little bit about controlled free fall and the embracing yes without fear? And you know why I think it's interesting, right? In the last, I don't know, maybe 2 years, saying no has become kind of like a fashion term, right? It's exciting to say no and reject, right? And then you come around, and I mean, you mentioned earlier too that yes can be actually an enabler for change and opportunities, right? So it flips that approach a little bit around, right? From the self protection and and making sure that you can stay healthy towards creating opportunities with more yeses. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts here about this write up.
yep. So this control free fall is a concept that I actually developed after I experienced it. So it's like it's not a term I started with, but it's the term that I came up with after I did what I did, which
Mm-hmm.
is basically I am a guy. I am not a free spirited business person. Okay, I am a very conservative, typical corporate, middle class mindset. Okay. So for me to do something and take risks, I need to be able to convince myself that it's not that I have some preparation, right? But at the same time, I also need to feel that I have no choice, right? It's just,
Some pressure.
yeah. So it's like there is pressure, but I also know in the back of my mind that it's okay. But I'm not a personality where I can just jump without a
Mhm.
jumpsuit, for example, right? I need some protection. It's sort of like wearing a seatbelt, right? Like, and you still feel like you're protected, but it still helps you because you're still free falling. But there's so that's where the idea came from, to find the balance between embracing uncertainty, which is what you need to do, right? To do anything business wise, is you have to be able to embrace uncertainty, but also maintaining some preparedness, which is where my personality came. Right? I cannot do anything without being prepared. So it's so it emerged from that, my personal experience of leaving that secure, or I guess a false sense of secure corporate job, to venture into this entrepreneurship, right? Which usually involves a lot of unknowns, which is very daunting. But having this concept of, hey, what is the thing that brings me the most stress, is not having money, right? Like going back to the income insecurity.
Mhm.
So if I can then somehow make myself comfortable that it's not going to be as bad, and so we did some our own accounting and our own budgeting, and we said, okay, 6 months, we need, let's say, $6,000 a month. We need $36,000 is what we need for us to say, okay, we can still tighten our belt, live our lives. Nothing, kids still go to school, they do their thing, while we try this, right? Um, so we, so we did that. So I said, okay, it's there now. I can free fall knowing that I have that, right? So leaving that, I have to leave the comfort of a paycheck, right? It is the most difficult thing to do.
Mhm.
So it is almost like a mental trick, is to say I'm not really losing it because I've got this. I'm okay, right?
So you're not
Uh,
in complete fear mode, and like, or you can still pursue what you want to do, rather than, again, if you need to do what you need to do, you'll do what it is, right? You ended up with catering to bridge the gap, and you may be doing other things, right, which may, again, not move you forward as a person or your career per se, right?
yeah. So once you do that, once you don't have a paycheck, but you know that you've got money, you're kind of now not taking anything for granted, which is where saying yes comes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, because you're not taking $1,000 for granted anymore, right? When you've got so much, like, because as executives, you make good money, right? You don't have to worry about $1,000 here and there. All of a sudden, those things start to matter.
Hmm.
If I make $3,000 on something, that means I can try this. I can keep doing this for 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks, whatever that was, right?
Yeah.
So once that shift happened, what these remarkable things start happening, right? Opportunities start coming my way, although small things, which was not related to what I thought was my long-term goals, right? Like catering is one other example. Somebody wanted to build a website. I was helping. These things I would have never thought of, right? Setting up a printer for somebody,
Yeah.
stuff like that. All of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I'm just doing things I would have never done, um, which was not in my original plan. So having this free fall, so to speak, took me to places it wouldn't have taken me otherwise, because I would have judged those opportunities.
Right. And I think that's the fascinating thing about it, right? If you're more settled, if you're in an environment that's more predictable, controlled, right? There's fewer opportunities to say yes to things, which limits opportunities, right? To completely left field of like, whoa, I never even thought about that, right? And and I think that's it's maybe not for you in this case, maybe a personal choice to limit growth. It's just the opportunities that don't exist. But once you didn't have the structured, predictable environment anymore, right? Then, like you said, it kind of opened up to more possibilities, huh?
Yeah, because absolutely. So the magic of that was that I stopped over analyzing the opportunities, trying to like, is it the right thing for my
Should I do
growth?
this? Should I not do this?
Yeah, like stop me to overthink from overthinking, right? Again, it goes back to that income insecurity. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I guess I can make 3 grand out of this, which means that I can do this for 2 more weeks, three.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll do
yeah,
it. So,
yeah,
so there was no fear because there is some money there. And number two, now I'm like, well, I'm just income insecure. Any money that comes, I'll just do whatever I need to do.
yeah,
I'm not saying that's the only way, but I'm saying that's the way that I got to where I got to. Was that's what that journey of me doing this is what led me to meet the people that ended up making such a big difference in my life, right? Which what created what we have created so far, right? But if you have to go back to one thing that led me there, is that control free fall mindset, which
uh-huh,
is
uh-huh,
the only way I've succeeded in my life in the past is when I had no choice.
mm-hmm,
Coming from a lower middle class family, coming from family that didn't have anything, right? We didn't own a house, we didn't own a car, nothing. Like bare bone. I've played badminton tournaments barefoot, right? So there was nothing.
mm-hmm,
Um, so coming from that background, um, I had no choice but to succeed, right? So it became part of my personality. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing it. But then once you accumulate things, when you accumulate things, you accumulate fear as well,
uh-huh. Because it can't be taken away again, right?
right? That's the thing, you're worried about losing it.
Yeah,
So you have to be conscious of it. So which is what I thought was limiting me, was me not wanting to lose what I had worked hard and built,
mm-hmm,
which is financial, right?
mm-hmm,
So which was limiting, which for me, now I'm not saying this is for everybody. For me, I'm like, I'm not playing the game like I used to before. I'm not evolving as much because now I'm holding on to what I'm having and I'm stop. So which means 10 years from then, I wouldn't have grown because that's the only way I grew, was just keep moving, right?
yeah,
So this was my way of trying to recreate my 20s and create a sense of urgency,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like you cannot afford to, you just have to succeed. That's where
yeah,
the free fall comes.
yeah,
But then I know how to succeed in a free fall because I've done it before. But then I've got now a family to support. I've got kids to send to
right,
school, right?
right. A little bit less flexibility. Yeah,
Right. So that's where the control part comes, right?
mm-hmm,
So it's combining what my character was, which is I'll succeed if I have no choice, but I cannot afford to do it anymore because I've got. So just strip down to the basics and say, what do I need to put food on the table, make sure family is okay, right? Not worry about all these other things that we accumulated.
yeah,
Uh, so putting that gives me a sense of control, right? Giving me a control factor and then letting it fall because I don't have a job. I don't have a paycheck that's coming, right? And once that happens, then to some extent the mojo came back, I guess, right? Like the things that I used to do to make me to get to where I was happening again,
yeah,
which was missing because I was too comfortable. I was scared of losing. I was saying no. To your point, there's a lot of things that happened. So this framing helped me get through that phase and just get back to my original personality, which is what made me successful, to made me
yeah.
get to where I was.
Yeah, very, very, again, a wonderful story, and thanks for sharing. You know, you've been successful, right? You've built businesses. You're currently working with two newer businesses, and one of them particularly, right? Mindset to excel. Um, on the, like you said, on the blog, on your website, you share a lot of stories about your experiences, right? And you're looking to share your experiences, maybe not to have other people follow in your footsteps per se, but like when I read it, it's I see parallels to my own path, even though it's completely different, right? It just opens up a different thought process, a different perspective. And I think with Mindset to Excel, you're probably looking to share some of those experiences and help other people to find their path as well. If you want to talk a little bit about your approach to that and your vision for Mindset to Excel.
So thanks for that. The idea of that came from uh, looking back in my life and how life has taken me to be where I am. And my passion has always been to groom, to help people, right? At the end of the
Mhm.
day, that's where I get most of my happiness from, is when I see somebody say, tell me, yeah, you made a difference to me, however small it may be. So this whole idea came from, what can I do to make people realize their potential? It- and how do I then convey that message, right? It has to be
Mhm.
based on my experiences, because that's how I know I have learned. But what I've tried to do with this is abstract the things that can be applied to anybody's approach. This is how I approached it. So in my all my blogs, if you read it, I'll always quote a couple of instances in my life where that lesson came from.
Mhm.
But I believe those lessons and the mindset shifts can be applied to whatever situation you're in.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It can be just growing in your career. It can be work-life balance, whatever those are. Which is what I'm trying to do in Mindset to Excel, is just helping people explore their mindset a little bit more, and hopefully then help leverage that mindset shift to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important, right? I mean, again, this journey sharing that you're doing, right? When somebody reads that, or at least when I read that, right? It's again, it's I have a different path myself, and every other person has a different path themselves too. But I think it's so valuable, right? To have a chance, an opportunity to stop, to look back, to reflect, and how you describe it with the mindset, right? So it's not necessarily, I think, to be stuck per se, or doing something wrong or having to change much, right? I think a lot of it is within our own experiences. If we take a look back at that and leverage that, right, in how we can proceed, and then in addition to that, right, learn from other people about how they went about their journey as well. So I think it's a really, really cool approach that you have for sharing that and helping others.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that people would find it valuable. From I don't consider myself better than anybody. I don't consider myself as somehow like very accomplished, but what I do consider myself is, to get to where I am today. It's a lot more hard work than people realize, right? Because I just didn't have right. So I do believe that that approach can be applied, and people can get farther than I ever could. But it's that mindset shift that can just take you to different places,
Mhm,
right? Much higher than
mhm,
what I could ever go
mhm.
to. It's sort of like a coach, right? Coach doesn't need to know exactly how to do something. A coach has to just tell you, these are the ways you can enhance your things, and sky's the limit, so to speak, right?
Yeah, if you can get the people to realize their own path and understand it, right, then you can really open up new opportunities within people, right, rather than following a script, because everybody
Yeah.
is indeed different, and everybody's journey and path is really different, right?
Yeah. See, look, these days with AI, with all this, you don't need somebody, like, unless we add value in personalizing it. You can go read a blog about
Hmm.
mindset. There is indefinite podcasts about it, right? But what I'm hoping we'll offer is a personalized approach to it, right? Not some article that you can go read. It comes from a personal experience, and it's personalized to your values.
Right, right,
So it makes a difference to you, right? We'll
right.
understand your life, your priorities, your definition of success, and how we can apply some of these things that I have learned over the years to your life. That's where the difference is, right?
Right.
It's not It's not my life, it's not somebody's life, it's your life. How we can apply these concepts into your life to define it. You can define your own success, you can define your own path, but there is some common things you can apply to make that more effective, so to speak. So I am kind of like a GPS.
Yeah.
That's what I want
Yeah,
to be, right?
I really couldn't agree more, right? With the general approaches, it's I think you said it very well, right? You can basically come up with anything. You can create writing with AI, right? Which is very sometimes I feel a little bit like the humanity can be missing if it's too generic, right? And I think the approach to custom or to tailor a service to help, I think that's invaluable, right? Because it can really understand the environment, you can adjust it, you can accommodate people that are in the space, right, in your environment, and really help in a targeted kind of way that people can succeed. So very, very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, and it makes me whole. It makes me full. It makes me happy. I talked to somebody the other day who's struggling with so many other things, not just career, like
Mhm.
just overall, right? How do
Mhm.
I balance work and life? My kids have left. Like what the future holds, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we just complicate life with so many thoughts. Um, because I do it too, right? Like when I'm doing this coaching, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to them, right? Like so, but just having somebody to guide you through it is what is the key. So that's why I said the analogy that I can give is I'm the GPS for you. I don't pick your destination, right? I don't tell you how fast you want to drive. I don't want to tell you what your destination is. Not, I'll just give you directions, and I'll tell you there are potential pitfalls. You can go faster this way, you can go slower that way, but I'll be your guide, right? Literally, I'll be your GPS.
Yeah.
Everything else,
Awesome.
you drive yourself, right? You drive where you want to drive, how fast you want to drive, but I'm there to guide you. So that's
Yeah.
ultimately.
Very nice, very nice, very admirable. Again, your undertaking, right, with a mission to help others from your learnings, maybe avoid some pitfalls, maybe go faster as a result, right, of sharing knowledge and discovery.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's the. Sorry, go ahead. No, you're saying
no, no,
something.
go ahead.
No, so I think I don't know if I have this on my website or not. So I think I said somewhere that learn from a mistake so you can make your own. Right? Like so that goes to what you just said. It might accelerate your progress, right? Because you don't have to like, so hopefully I can help with that to tell
Yeah,
you the mistakes I made so you can make your own mistakes. Um, so and one thing that connects you and I from 20 years ago is this person you and I know, he's from Britain. Um, he used to tell me, I remember him because I was a bad programmer, right? I really was. And I think you and I were paired at some point. But anyway, but he told me this and he helped me through it and he taught me a few things, which I then used for years after that, right? So I had called
Mm,
him years after I left the job we were together with and all this. It's like a few years, and he had called me for a reference. Like, can you be? I said, yeah, sure, I'll be a reference. And then I called him back like a few days later, thanking him for giving me what he gave me, which is what set me up for the next job to
yeah,
be successful.
yeah.
And he said, Anand, if you don't need to thank me, but if at all you do, the best way to thank me is to help the next person.
How cool is that? So it is to pay it forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, John was his name. I guess you and I know him, but
Hmm.
that reminds me, I haven't talked to him in a while. But John, I remember exactly the same thing, right? So it stuck with me forever now, since now, right? So that's what ultimately is causing me to do what I'm doing in my future from now. Is I've always done it, but now I've created a company whose main focus is just that, is to pay it forward.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Yeah. I think call it a day for now.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll add some links to your blog. You'll be connected with the profile again. If you like what you've heard on the podcast, check out Anand's profile. Check out his website, blog. Give him a follow and see what he's up to. Quite interesting services, experience, and a lot of insights to learn. So yeah, without further ado, thanks everyone for joining today. Insightful discussion. Thanks so much, Anand, for joining.
Thanks, Dominik. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sharing your journey and the insights. I think it's really worth listening to this and digesting, right, for own self-reflection. So hopefully a lot of people get value out of your sharings. Really nice and appreciate it.
I've done it on one-on-one, but I'm not comfortable putting it out there. So thanks for providing a platform for me to feel safe so I can put it out there. So,
now it's visible worldwide. There's no more hiding.
Like we are gonna go viral. No.
For better or worse. Awesome. What a great chat. We need to do this again sometime. I think there's more topics to get into.
For sure. We should do it again.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you
so much. Talk again soon. Bye everyone. Until next time.
Thank you.